This is the Dad 77. I'm Kerry Briggs. This is a daily pop. Haven't done one of these for a while. They're supposedly shorter, so we're going to see how well I do on that. Just everybody go, oh yeah, right. So this daily pop is on denying yourself. What does that mean? What does it look like? What does the Bible say about it? I was actually reading in Timothy today, and I came upon a verse that I had read many times before, but all of a sudden, it's like when you read something and all of a sudden it goes, I never really thought about that. I never really caught that. So that's what stimulated this whole thing. So we're going to start with Luke 9:23 and 24. It says, Then he, Jesus, said to them all, if anyone, I'm going to read this once and then I'm going to read it with interpretation. If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. So, reading it with interpretation from the Greek. If anyone desires, has intent to come after me, to follow him, to do what he does, to learn from him, let him deny himself. That means say no to yourself, to your desires, to your wants, your think so, your direction that you feel you should go. You deny yourself and take up his cross. The cross is what was used for crucifixion, of killing things, killing yourself. Take up your cross also means not letting the sin that someone does to you cause you to sin. In other words, well, you can't talk to me that way. Well, and then you give them a piece of your mind, which leaves you with less, and you do the things that is very normal and natural that we do, not what this is saying. You then, because they've offended you, they've hurt you, whatever, then you turn around and you sin because of the way you react to it. That's what that's saying when you're saying taking up your cross daily. Daily means every day, every month, every year, every breathing moment, daily. So every day you take up the cross and you don't let what someone does to you offend you or put you in a position where you will then sin in yourself in retaliation. And you follow me. That means you join him. You take on his thoughts, his deeds, and you do the things that he did. So what is the importance of this? Or is it really important that we deny ourselves? Well, that first part was verse 23. This is verse 24. Luke 9:24. For whoever desires to save his life, save my wants, save my desires, save my think so, save what I want to do. Anyone who ever desires to save his life, the old life, you will lose it. But whoever loses his life, the old way, the old way we respond, the old us, whoever loses that for my sake, meaning for following Jesus, will save it. And that's also said in Matthew 16:24 and Mark 8:34. When it makes it into all the Gospels, then it's probably an important aspect that God and Jesus is trying to get through to people. So it's something that we should really think about. So, what does it look like to count ourselves dead but alive in Jesus? Romans 6 5 through 7. For if we have become united with him, so we did deny ourselves and we are now united with him in the likeness of his death, certainly we shall also be in the likeness of his resurrection, which is glorified. Knowing this, that our old self was crucified, hung on the cross with him, crucified with him, in order that our body of sin might be done away with. And that done away with, it means made powerless. So sin is made powerless because we are in the likeness of his death and in the likeness of his resurrection, crucifying our old self and our old sin and our old ways. We made it powerless so that we would no longer be slaves to sin. Being a slave to sin is that the sin is controlling you. If you were a slave to an individual, you responded to that individual. If you are a slave to sin, you respond with sin. For this is verse 7. For the one who has died, we died with Christ, is freed from sin, acquitted from sin. That's what that means. Ephesians 4 22 and 23, that in the reference of your former way of life, you are to rid yourself of the old self, which is being corrupted in accordance with the lust of deceit, that you are to be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Colossians 3 8 through 10. But now you also rid yourself. This is the old self. This is what you're supposed to rid yourself of. Do you have any of these? Do you function in these? You know, sometimes we function really well in some of these. Or have we put these away and no longer respond in these manners? Verse 8, but now you also rid yourself of all of them. So I can't hang on to any of them. I have to get rid of all of them. What are they? Good question. Where'd I go? Oh, here I am. Anger, wrath, which is even beyond anger, malice towards people, slander, and obscene speech from your mouth. Do not lie to one another, since you have, here we go again, stripped off the old self and its evil practices. The old self is evil practices. It's our own old nature. It's an old way we are. We have stripped off that old self and its evil practices. Verse 10, and have put on a new self, which is being renewed in the true knowledge according to the image of the one who created it. Who created the new? Jesus did. God did. If you go back to Genesis, man was made in the image of God. We were supposed to be like God. We were supposed to be love. We were supposed to be light. We were supposed to shine on the world. But then we decided to go our own way, and then man fell, and man no longer looked like the image that it was created, that he was created to be. Think about this. There was no death. God said, if you eat of that tree, you will surely die. So there's no death because nobody ate of that tree until Adam and Eve. And then they died. Of course, spiritually they died. So we're talking about putting off the old and putting on the new. So we need to put on Christ. What does that look like? John 8:12. Then Jesus again spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. The one who follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. You will have that light of life. Jesus said, I am the light of the world. You will have the light of life. John 9:5. While I'm in the world, I am the light of the world. Jesus was talking about while he's in the world, he's the light of the world, but he knew that he was going to be leaving the world. He was going to be crucified, die, raise again, and then he was going to ascend to the Father, and he was going to be there until he comes back in his judgment. So when he's in the world, he's the light of the world. Well, now he physically is not in the world. So then what happened? Well, he told everyone in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5:14 and 15, he says, you are the light of the world. So he made a bunch of lights, and he said, you are the light of the world. The city on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, so it gives light to all who are in the house. Our house is the world. Our house is all the people that in the world that the light of Jesus would shine through. We have been called to be the light and be the love of Jesus in the world. Is your light under a basket? Or is it out there and people see your good deeds and glorify God, going, wow, this guy's different. This woman's really different. She's amazing. Her attitude, his attitude, the way he treats people is like, wow, that's part of being a light to the world. Jesus was and is love. And he said, love one another as I have loved you. He said that to the disciples. And he said, not just the 12, but when it says disciples, sometimes it would mention the 12, and sometimes it say the disciples. Well, there were a lot of other disciples that were around him most of the time. And he said, love one another. And there's examples all over the gospel where Jesus was loving people. He loved the disciples. He loved, one of the disciples was said to be the one Jesus loved, which is thought to be John. Jesus said he loved Lazarus, and Mary and Martha, he loved them. And he said, love one another. And then he also said, and this is again is in the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, in that he said to love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you and do evil against you. And we're told to love not our life even unto death. Jesus did this. He showed us how to do this and that. Yet, while he was here, he was called a blasphemer. They said, you're demon possessed. You cast out demons because you're Beelzebub. However, that's interesting that the demons actually knew who he was, and they cowered and were like, have you come to torment us already? It's not time yet. So people were saying all kinds of things like that, yet he still loved the world, meaning mankind, that he went through the process of the torment and the torture and the death on the cross for the world, for mankind. When people, it's when you say world, you just kind of get this big thing out here. But when you bring it down and say the world is mankind, he didn't die for the world. The world is going to pass away. He died for mankind, for each individual person. For you, he died one time, and he died for all people, for all sins, both past, present, and sins in the future. He died for all. He's not dying every time you sin. He doesn't go to the cross, pay that penalty. Then the next time you sin, go to the cross, pay that penalty. He did it once. He canceled all the debt by being a perfect sacrifice, that no longer would sin reign in our bodies. No longer would we be slaves to sin. No longer would it be what's controlling us. However, you have to understand that, and you have to walk in that. You can't, those things that we talked about, you can't go back into those things because we've stripped them off. The malice, the slander, all those things that we talked about earlier. We've done away with them. So what got me started down this road was I was reading in 2 Timothy chapter 2, and I came upon a verse, and I went, I've read that before, but this is an interesting part of the verses that I never really caught before. So verses 2 Timothy 2, verses 11 through 13. The statement is trustworthy. For if we died with him, we've already talked about that, we will also live with him. We also talked about that. If we endure, that means we put effort into it and we maintain who we are and the focus of not being on ourself but on the new self. If we endure, we will also reign with him. If we deny him, he will deny us. This is talking about at the end times. If we deny him, he'll deny you. We are faithless. We fall. We do not do these things that we're talking about. And we go back to the old. Although you don't have to, but we are faithless. He remains faithful. And then this is a statement that caught my attention. For he cannot deny himself. And I was like, wow, we're told to deny ourselves and follow him, but he can't deny himself. He could not deny who he was and who he is. He can't deny all the promises that he spoke on and that are in the Gospels. He cannot deny that. Sometimes when he was confronted with the religious leaders, he would turn it around and not be real clear with them who he was, because it was more of a timing thing. But he was very clear with the disciples, and he was very clear in the Gospels who he was: the Son of God, the Lamb slain before the foundation of the world, as John the Baptist called him. He was the firstborn of the dead. He is the Savior of the world, meaning mankind, the one who showed the love of God to the world. These things and many more things, Jesus can't deny who he was when it comes to those things. And he will remain faithful to those things. That's a pretty cool promise. So he was the love of God to the world. What is the love of God to the world? 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8. The love chapter. All those love things. And we just did, the last podcast was on God is love, and we talked about that in there. Go listen to that, because this is what Jesus is. This is what God is. He is 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8. One last verse is 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 5. But realize this, that in the last days, we're always kind of thinking we're in the last days, difficult times will come, for people will be. Are you any of these? As we go through them, look inward and go, Is that me? No. Is that me? Kinda. Is that me? Uh, on a bad day. Is that me? Yes, sometimes I do that. These are the things. So, the book of Timothy was written to Timothy by Paul. Timothy was an elder in the church of Ephesus, and he was there a long time, and he preached there, and there was some issues there, and so Paul wrote him because he was like Paul's son, and he wrote him, and and this is Paul writing him saying to this, look, in the last days when difficult times are coming, and for people will be lovers of self, lovers of money. They will be boastful. They will be arrogant. They will be slanderers. They will be disobedient to parents. They will be ungrateful. They will be unholy. They will be unloving, irreconcilable, malicious gossips. Been on Facebook lately? Instagram, maybe? Uh, Without self control, brutal, haters of good, treacherous, reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. And he tells Timothy, stay away from these dudes and dudettes. Are you any of these things? Are you a lover of yourself and what you want to do and who you think you are and all that? Are you a lover of money, that you're more concerned about money than God? Are you boastful about your accomplishments? Are you arrogant in thinking you're so much better than anyone else? Are you a slanderer? Do you cut people down and you cut their reputations down? Are you disobedient to your parents? Are you ungrateful for the things you've gotten? That also, that side of ungrateful is, I want this, I want that, I want something else, because you're ungrateful with what you have. Unholy, unloving, irreconcilable, and malicious gossips. Boy, that's everywhere. Without self control, haters of good, treacherous, reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. Avoid these people. Once you get through that list and go, yeah, me, no, yeah, me, no, me. Once you get, so you, that shows what you need to get rid of, and you don't need to concentrate on that thing to get rid of. You need to go to 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8, and become that. Not worry about these things here. You become 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8, and you will have put off your old man and you will be put on the new man, and your light will be shining before people. So this was a little bit longer than a normal daily pop. It's usually like 10 to 15 minutes, but we had to cover it all and get it in there. Any questions, anything like that, you can contact me at 77thedad77@gmail.com and leave comments. Like the channel, share the channel, be the channel.